This better be about my stimulus check. Hello? What do you mean the site's down? Everything? Alright, cool. I'm on it. First thing to know about Incident Management 101. Never happens when it's convenient. So what that means for you is you've got to have the tools to respond no matter what time the incident comes in. It means whether you're drunk, hungover, at a party, or getting laid, when the phone rings, you got to answer. It also means you got to have the tools to do your job. That means you got to have your laptop, your phone, anything else you might need, like two-factor auth devices. Because if you don't have those, you're gonna be pretty worthless, right? So you got to have them with you, and when you're on call, you got to carry them with you at all times. That even means if you're going over to grandma's 101st birthday party, you've got to take your laptop with you. Because if you don't, you're going to be tempted to use grandma's Windows ME computer that gets railed every night by your uncle who still lives in the basement, and his ever-long quest to find every Resident Evil Village porn video on the internet. And there's no way you can connect that virus-infected piece of crap to your VPN at work, right? Right. It's inconvenient, but that's the job. All right, for us, so it's about 2 a.m. right now. The clock's ticking, site's down, we're losing money. So we're going to run through our incident management process and see if we can get things back online. The first thing to know about dealing with outages or incidents is you need a plan, and that plan can only be created before the incident happens. You're about to see why. I'm also going to use the terms incident management and outage interchangeably in the video here. The key difference to knowing which one to use is context. Whenever you're the poor schmuck up at 2 a.m. working on it, it's an outage. But when you list it on your resume to get a new job, it's incident management. So step one of Incident Management 101, first step is to triage. And in order to triage this, we need to determine the priority. The priority is going to come up with a list of, it's a list of, or guidelines of how we handle this. You know, the higher priority of an issue, the more aggressive we're going to be. It also sets our time limits and how long we have to resolve this issue. For example, a priority 1 issue is the highest priority, so it's the most urgent. And then like a priority 5 is going to be lower priority, something that may not even have to be dealt with tonight, but something that can be dealt with the next day. And you're going to have certain steps that you have to take for each of those priorities that we'll get into here in a minute. But to determine the priority, there's 2 pieces of information that you need. You need the impact and the severity. So by impact, we really just mean the number of people who are affected, basically. You know, is this, if your entire application's down, you know, it's a worldwide outage. No one anywhere can access your application. Lower level impact could be something that's regional, specific to a certain region. It could also be you know, if it's just the impact is just a certain part of your application, which overlaps with severity in just a little bit, and then all the way down to like the lowest level of impact. You know, it could just be that ChevyLover420 at AOL.com in Huntsville, Alabama can't get to your site, and that's the only person impacted, so that's going to be your lowest priority or your lowest impact, right? Severity, on the other hand, is how severely are they impacted. You know, if the entire application's down, well, that's pretty severe. If it's just a certain part of your application that's down, you know, maybe if you operate in a microservices type environment and one of your microservices is down, maybe the users can't get to the, you know, the account preferences section of your application or something like that. And then the lowest level of severity is where there's going to be some type of impact, something that doesn't work right with the application, but there's a way to work around it. So basically you take those two, the impact and the severity, and you lay them out into a chart like this. And then you'll find your impact and find your severity, and that tells you what your priority is. And then based on the priority, you're going to have a certain set of steps that you have to take. Now, your higher priority incidents or outages are going to have more aggressive steps. It's going to involve things like calling your executive team, letting them know what's going on, maybe involving your marketing team, to prepare an email that goes out to all your customers. It could also involve contacting certain account reps or sales reps in your company so that they can contact your high-profile customers who may have certain SLAs, and you need to address that with them. And one of the most important things about that, about being proactive like that, is everyone goes down. Everyone has an outage. So to plan to never have to have an outage is a pretty futile effort. So you're going to go down, but one of the things you can do to make that more tolerable to your customers is if you contact your customers and tell them that you were down or that you currently are down, they're much, much more receptive than they are if they're trying to use your application and they can't. All right, so we've got a priority 1 incident here, which means we're going to go through our highest level of escalation protocols. And one of the steps on there is to notify the executive team. So we get to call the CEO. Hi, can I speak with Mr. please? This is Will Button. Yes, ma'am, I do know how late it is. I apologize for calling late. We have an issue at work, though, and I need to get a hold of him. I see. No, ma'am, actually, I don't know where he is. That's the reason I'm calling. Yeah, I understand. All right, if when I get a hold of him, I will certainly relay that message to him. All right, thanks. Hope you have a great evening. Bye. Okay, so, well, I'm not going to answer it. So the purpose of setting the priorities and the different steps along with those is so that the right people, the key stakeholders, are notified for certain level of events. And just as a side note there, that's plus 10 points for me for using the buzzword key stakeholder at 2 a.m. So, yeah, if you've got your buzzword bingo board out, might want to mark that one off. So the key thing about getting hold of these people, right, is you've got to have good contact numbers to get a hold of them. But the other part, the part that's going to make this go a lot easier, is having them expecting your call. In a larger company or in some environments, you may not have any relationship with your CEO or anyone in your executive team for that matter. And so when you call them at 2 a.m., you're like, hey, it's Will from work. Yeah, I know, I don't know you. But it's a really awkward conversation, right? So that's one of the reasons why all of this planning has to take place up front, is because certain actions here are going to take place, and it's always better if the people who are affected by those actions know that they're coming, right? So calling your executive team, you're going to want to work with them ahead of time during the planning process, so you know, first of all, when they want to be notified, and then second, whenever you do call them, they know why you're calling them, and you're not just being an asshole to call them at 2 a.m. Now, for a high priority issue like this, once we do get a hold of the CEO and the other members of the executive team, they're going to be wanting answers. Meanwhile, we're supposed to be trying to resolve this issue, so it kind of creates a conflict of interest here, right? You can't blow off your executive team and tell them you're busy working on it and don't have time to answer their questions. So one of the best things you can do is grab someone to be your communications officer at this point. Now, that could be one of the engineers who was the backup on call. A lot of times when you have an on-call rotation, you'll have a primary and a backup. This would be a good time to grab the backup person and have them act as the communications officer. Or if you have multiple people on call for different applications. You know, if you have someone who's on call for your website and someone who's on call for the accounting system and so on, grab one of those people and have them operate as the communications officer. Or, you know, lack of anything else, grab someone from your customer service team or whoever escalated this call to you and let them handle that for you, so that whenever key resources come in and they need updates, they can handle that update process while you continue working the issue, bringing it to resolution. So if you end up escalating this, if this turns out to be something you can't fix yourself and you need someone who's more familiar with the project or more familiar with the product, you can escalate to them, and then at that point you become the communications officer. And so the primary thing to do when you are the communications officer is to keep the NPCs away from the people working on the issue. At the same time, you're going to need updated information from the people working on the issue, or if you're the one working on it, you're going to have to provide regular, frequent updates so that they can share that information out to everyone who's affected by this. And there's a couple ways to do that. You can do a Zoom conference and just leave your camera and your mic running like we're doing here. You can use Slack. If you are going to use Slack or Microsoft Teams, something like that, I recommend having a dedicated alerts channel inside of there so that other noise or other people doing their routine tasks don't create a bunch of messages in there that aren't related to resolving the issue. You can also just use a shared document, like a Google Doc or something like that, and that works as well. Just make sure that you're including timestamps in there as well. And then try to include as much detail as you can about what you're doing. If you make a change to the code, if you modify the settings on the servers, if you launch additional servers, change load balancers, anything that you do in course of trying to mitigate this issue, make sure it's documented in there with the timestamp, because later, after this is all said and done and you're working on the root cause for this, or eventually on the post-mortem for this, having the timestamps and the monitoring system and the logs all synced up makes it much, much easier to get an accurate picture of what happened. And also it documents the things that may need to be undone once the issue is resolved. For example, if you launch 35 additional servers to handle the load of whatever's going on, you're going to want to shut those 35 servers down so that you don't blow your hosting bill up by the end of the month. All right, let's recap where we're at here in our 5 steps to dealing with an outage. Our first step was to triage, basically determine how bad this problem really is and determine the priority for the issue. The second step was communication, and we've just done that, where we've contacted everyone who needed to be notified according to the things that were outlined for a priority 1 incident. And now we're on to our third step, which is mitigate. And so mitigate is really just about making the problem go away in any way possible. This is not about finding the root cause. It's not about understanding or doing a deep dive in what's really going on. It's just make the bleeding stop. So it turns out, actually, that our users are fairly active on Twitter, and they've noticed that our site's down. Might not be surprised to hear that they're posting about that on Twitter. And so I actually tried to reply to some of the tweets there and let them know that we were working on it, but I've got like -7 followers on Twitter, so I was instantly flagged as a bot and downvoted and banned from Twitter for 7 days for violating terms and conditions. So there you go. Meanwhile, now I'm trying to contact marketing over there, because they appear to be the only ones that have the access to our Twitter account to let our customers know there what's going on. So that brings us to our next point. In dealing with the outage, you need access, not only to your tools as a developer, your laptop, your VPN access, your 2-factor auth stuff. You need phone numbers to contact the right people, but you also may need things like access to resources you don't normally have access to, like a Twitter account, or in this case, access to someone over at marketing who does have the Twitter account. Now, I've also got our intern, creating a status page for us because the site's down. So we're trying to create a status page to let everyone know that the site is down so that they have some kind of information. And again, this is one of those things that really should be done before the outage ever occurs. And there's a couple of things to know about doing this, right? The first is you want this to be completely separate from your application, right? If your application normally hosts your status page and your application's down, it's not really going to be effective. The other reason is you want this to just be a static HTML page that you can point your load balancer to or route your DNS to or something, maybe hosted on an S3 bucket as a static page or a static site. And you want it to be different from your website because it's just informative at this point, All hell's breaking loose. We want it to be simple, quick loading, clean, and most importantly, we want it to be separate from our main application or our main website, because the main website, we all do this, when someone scrolls along and they spend a certain amount of time, you throw a pop-up ad offering them like 25 or 30% off if they buy now or if they give us their email address or whatever. This is the worst possible time to try and upsell someone. So you want your we're down, oh shit page to just be off somewhere where it doesn't accidentally get, updated with those pop-up ads or whatever types of sales approaches you use on your normal website. Now, while that's going on, we're going to try and mitigate this. And like I said, mitigate just means stop the bleeding. So different mitigation strategies could involve just launching more servers. If you've got memory utilization is just through the roof on all of your servers, just throw more servers at the problem to see if you can bring it back up. Same thing if it's a database issue, if your database is locking up, throw more resources at the database. If it's just a specific section of your code or of your application that appears to be bringing everything down, do a hot fix to just disable that section. Don't troubleshoot it right now. The issue the primary objective right now is not to identify the root cause. It's just to get as close to operational as you can to buy yourself time to go and do the due diligence for a root cause, because 99% of the time what happens is if you try to do a root cause analysis right now, you're making some guesses, you're speculating a little bit, it's the middle of the night, you're not thinking really clearly, and you end up making decisions that make the problem worse or compound the problem, and it's really hard to keep clear direction on what's helping and what's not helping. So right now, just stop the bleeding, and that's our mitigation strategy. All right, so we were able to throw enough servers at the problem that things appear to be working for the moment, and so we're actually going to call this mitigated at this point, which takes us to our next step, which is resolve or resolution. This is where we're going to dig in and find the root cause to understand what's really going on with the problem, and then create the fix for that, whether that's a code update or configuration change or whatever it's going to be. However, that's not going to take place tonight because we want a lot of people to have input on this, people who aren't up and working on us right now. It's currently about 4 a.m., so we're going to actually just call this good and then regroup tomorrow morning when everyone is back online and we can have access to all of the engineers who have input and insight into how this operates and really identify the root cause and then take action based on that learning. So that's step 4 is the resolution. That'll take place tomorrow. Then the final step, which will take place possibly tomorrow, maybe the next day, is the follow-up, or you may hear this referred to as the post-mortem. And so what that is we're just going to review the entire incident, all of the information we had leading up to the incident, the escalation process, all of the steps that we took here tonight, and identify 2 things. First, what went well and what could have gone better. Some of the things that could have gone better was having accurate contact info for the people who needed to be contacted, having a status page ready to go. things that went well, we were able to quickly identify the issue and get it resolved. And so you're just going to go through that, and it's a learning process. You know, it's really, really important that in your follow-up process that you use it as a learning tool and not a blame tool, because like I said in the beginning of the video, outages are going to happen. You know, you can't blame anyone for this. Even if someone took an action that directly related to this, you know, it's still not a blame. That's still not a blame condition, because we didn't create an environment where someone could safely and accurately do what they believe to be their job without stumbling into a condition that they didn't want to be in. So it's not a blame thing, it's an opportunity to improve our process. And that's the key from this. Identify everything that went well so you can reinforce those actions in future outages, and then identify things that could be improved and build better processes, systems, and things like that to make that a better experience next time. So there you go. Incident management or outage management 101. And the 5 steps are triage, communication, mitigate, resolution, and follow-up. And almost all of those have to happen ahead of time, as you saw. If you like this video, be sure and click the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit subscribe as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.